The poignant bugle of the last post swelled over war memorials across the Maritimes today as Canadians young and old paid tribute to the dead of 3 wars. Good evening, everyone. I'm Paul Meunier.
And I'm Nancy Regan. Lest we forget, tonight a special reflection on Live at 5. Across the country today, Canadians pause to remember, to honor the memory of those Canadians who died to protect freedom, equality, and tolerance. Today is also a day to pay tribute to Canadian peacekeepers who are still risking their lives to support these ideals.
Today's ceremony marks not only Remembrance Day, but also the 75th anniversary of the First World War armistice. On this day, 75 years ago, the Price family of the Annapolis Valley celebrated the armistice of 1918 like everyone else. They thought their vigil was finally over, but they were mistaken. Heather Proudfoot now with the story of Private George Lawrence Price, a story that's better known overseas than here.
Just one of dozens of remembrance services today in the Annapolis Valley. Here in Canning, George Barkhouse reflects on the story of the uncle he was named after but never knew. An uncle who died overseas in 1918.
This day and forevermore.
But the story of Private George Lawrence Price has an element of tragedy that's different. Private Price almost made it home. A sniper's bullet in Belgium ended his life. Exactly when it happened has given Private Price a place in history.
He was the last man officially killed in the First World War. He was shot 10 minutes before peace and died shortly after, but he officially was the last man shot.
Private George Price is listed as the last soldier from the Canadian Corps killed in action on the Western fighting line during the First World War. His family has been told he was the last Allied soldier to die minutes before the war officially ended. During a trip to Belgium 2 years ago, the family was honored by the community where he died.
It was overwhelming. It's just hard to believe that after 73 years at that point, that they still remembered.
George Price grew up in this area of the Annapolis Valley. It used to be called Church Street. It's now called Port Williams. His sister Florence remembers him as a kind and fun-loving older brother. Florence Barkhouse held her own silent remembrance of her brother George today. His picture hangs on her wall. Your memories are still very clear.
Oh, yeah. I can still see him.
And Florence still remembers Armistice Day 1918 and how they celebrated because they did not know George had been killed.
Everyone got together down in the schoolyard. And of course my sister and I went down too. And we were all running around and hollering and singing and celebrating so much. And then when we got the word, we felt so guilty.
But Florence prefers to remember the happier times. She's happy, too, her son George traveled to the ceremonies that honored her brother in Belgium, a place where the story of the last soldier is better known than it is here. In Canning, Heather Proudfoot, ATV News.